Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another Studies in Magic. This video was originally supposed to air in September, but as you guys know, it was in China, and China is really bad for my internet. So uh, that's why you're only seeing this now. Um, Also, on a personal note, I am outside today. The reason I'm outside is I like being in the cold just a little bit, get dressed up so I don't get sick. But I really do enjoy being outside, and that is why I'm outside. If you were wondering, that is the reason. All right, I wanted to talk today about working abroad, foreign magic, going to another country and working as a magician. This is something that I started to do a few years ago and continue doing today. I just wanted to go over exactly what I do and what magicians have historically done, and just some general tips. So I'll sort of tell you my story. When I was the first time I ever traveled to go to a magic convention, I was 20 years old. I went to MagicCon in San Diego, California. And after that, I started traveling throughout the US, going to more magic conventions. In 2012, I went to my first international magic convention in Italy to go see Rene Levin at Masters of Magic. And from there, I just started going to more and more conventions, traveling abroad just as much as I could. I would just travel. I would just travel as much as I could, and especially working. I used to travel a lot more to go to magic conventions as an attendee when I was younger, my early 20s. Now, virtually the only reason I go to magic conventions is because I'm working. Um, but want to talk a little bit about that. Let me just take off my hat. Uh, so, um, usually when you're working abroad, the language situation is a little bit iffy. Many countries in the world are filled with people who don't know how to speak English. I speak English. I also speak French. I am learning Spanish. I understand a little bit of Arabic. Uh, so in countries where it's French and English, I can get by. In Spanish, I can understand, but I'm not too great at speaking. So this rules out a lot of countries, and I've performed in many countries where language was a problem. I'll give try to. I'll give you a short list of countries. This is not all the countries, but I performed in Canada. I performed in the U.S. I performed in Mexico, Spain, France, Italy, Israel, the Netherlands, Germany, uh, Sweden, Denmark, China, South Korea, Australia, uh, Austria, uh, Greece, the UK, England, Scotland, and a bunch more that I'm not remembering right now in this moment. The more you travel, you remember everywhere you've been. It's just hard to recall in the moment because it's like everything's jumbled together. But if I had a map in front of me right now, I'd be like, yes, I was there, there, and there. But right now, I'm having a hard time naming all the places. The point is, many of these places, many countries, they don't speak English. Oh, great. They don't speak English. Sorry, I got distracted for a moment. Uh, they, they don't speak English, and because they don't speak English, you have to adapt to them. You never expect the audience to adapt to you. You have to adapt to them. If you're doing TV, it's fine. They will translate you in post. They'll either give you a voiceover or they'll put captions on the screen. Most recently, when I was in China, I was speaking in English. So, long story short, I was supposed to not speak at all, do a silent act. And then some things got confused, miscommunication, and I ended up having to speak. And when I was speaking, they had captions. And the way they had captions, this was a live show, is I had a script and I was sticking to my script 100%, reading line after line. I mean, in a natural way, but reading it in a way that they can go and put the next line up on the screen as the video is capturing me and being projected out to the thousands of people in the audience. That is not the ideal way to do it, and I just found out why during my performance. And every single lesson you learn in magic, and I think in life generally, many lessons you learn the hard way. During my routine, something happened. Something happened that was not supposed to happen. Not a huge thing, but something happened that was not supposed to happen. Not a huge thing, but a small thing, and it's something that I'm used to being able to correct in the moment. If something goes wrong in my magic, I'm used to being able to change and have multiple outs and multiple ways to get there in case something like this, what happened. But because of I had captions on the screen, I couldn't change what I was doing. I had to skip to the script. So as this thing happened with the cards, something that happens rarely, maybe one time out of 100 happened, I literally froze and I had to just continue the trick sticking to my script, which was not the ideal way to do it. If I was, doing it myself, I would, say a funny line and do this, and get right back on track. But I couldn't do it in that moment just because of the language. So ideally, there's two situations that you want. These are the ideals. The first ideal, if you can do it, I'm going to say the second one first, and then I'm going to say the best. So the second best option you can have is to have a translator who is extremely good and can translate and capture your voice. It's not good enough that somebody is just translating the words that you're saying, because many times they're going to miss the certain key elements that just make your performance powerful, that just make it stronger. So it's very important to have the right translator and somebody who really pauses when you pause, takes a breath when you take a breath, speaks with the same emotion that you speak with. That's what you're going to be looking for in a translator, because that is the person that's going to be presenting you to the people that you're performing for. So that is the second best option. You can do a translator. If you have a great translator, and that's great. Regardless of if you have a translator or not, always learn a few lines in the language just to say, even if it's just saying hello at the end and goodbye, hello at the beginning and goodbye at the end, even if it's those small things that's all you say in that country's language, learn how to say that. If you have a routine where you're asking them to shuffle or to do something, look at your script and find a few lines that you can translate into their language just to make it, a little better. People love when you come to their country and you're a foreigner and you're making an effort to speak their language. It really shows that you care and you want the audience to appreciate the effort that you're doing. It's not enough sometimes that you're just, you're going to their country and you don't speak the language and you're just doing this. They really appreciate it if you take a moment to learn a line or two, and they'll laugh at your language, they'll laugh at your pronunciation, but they will appreciate it. um, so that is the second best way that I would recommend. The number one best way, and I'm going to admit right now, I don't always do this. I only do this if I have enough time to prepare and my script is going to stay 100% the same. But translating your script and learning it in that language, if you're only doing one show, it's not really worth it. It's kind of a lot of effort for one show. But if you're doing a tour in a country and you're performing the same magic the same way every single time, um, and you have a script and you're just following that script, learn your script in that language phonetically. Get somebody to translate it for you and then to record them speaking it. And so you can read it line by line with the translation and memorize it phonetically in that language. If you, depending on where you are from in the world and the languages that you speak on, some languages are going to be easier, some are going to be harder. For me, it's pretty easy to do in Spanish, to memorize my lines in Spanish and be able to speak them if I need to for routines. And the same thing with French. I mean, I speak French, but I also work on translating what I'm saying before it comes time to translating it on stage, just because my mind, it does not work that fast with both the translating of the language and performing the actual magic. So if you can get somebody to translate phonetically the language for you, and you sit down and you go through line, depending on um, what you're doing. I've seen people do it for 10-minute sets, and I've seen people do it with, their whole show, an hour-long show. This is a tradition that goes back many, many years. Magicians would do this hundreds of years ago. Houdini was there's a funny story with Houdini. When Houdini was performing in Russia, he was memorizing his whole show in Russian. And he went out to a park and he had the script, and he went out to a park early in the morning and he was just walking back and forth reading the script out loud, practicing his show to himself just so that he could get the Russian right. And he came to the part of the show, and this is a true story, by the way. He came to a part of the show where he was speaking about his escapes, and he was talking about his handcuffs, and he started screaming in the park that no police officer, no police organization in the world can restrain me. I will escape. No one can restrain me. And he's screaming this at the top of his lungs in the park because that's what he would do on stage at certain parts of the show. It was dramatic. So he really wanted to be able to say those things in Russian, and the same way that he was going to do it on stage. Now he's screaming in the park that no one can contain him, no one can arrest him, and people actually were thinking he was a crazy person in the park, and the police came over and they were watching him, and they called a few police officers and they jumped to him in the park, and they actually took him to the mental hospital. So that's Houdini in Russia. I forget the year. It might have been like 1907. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere around there, Houdini was arrested in the park for practicing translating his speech. He was taken to the mental hospital, or as we call it, the nut house, for crazy people. And then once they found out who he was, they released him, and he was able to use that publicity. And it's just a funny story in magic. But it is a true story that he was actually arrested and taken. uh, so if you can do that, definitely work on doing that. Your audience will really appreciate that. And that is the way that you can go directly to your audience, depending on what country you're in. Um, there's obvious downsides to it. Excuse me. There's downsides to it. For example, if your audience members are have interaction in the show, you won't be able to understand what they're saying. If you don't actually understand the language, then you won't be able to understand what they're saying. So, there's that. But other than that small downside, it's definitely worth it. So you should really consider doing it if you are working abroad. Um, that's pretty much all I want to say about the language. When you're traveling, getting sick sucks. There have been times where I've been on tour, and I did a whole podcast episode on this is on Before Magic. So if you want to listen to that, I talk about staying healthy on the road. But when you're traveling, and some of these shows that you're doing, or if you're doing a lecture tour or any type of tour, you're oftentimes only in one place for a single night. So you get to where you're going, you perform, and then the next day you're somewhere else doing the same thing. It's very easy to get sick in these places. For me personally, I have trouble sleeping in hotels that I'm not familiar with. If the bed is not my bed, I sometimes have trouble sleeping. So that sleeplessness builds up, the immune system goes down, you get sick. Uh, Jeff Hobson, I think it's Jeff Hobson, magician. He's known for doing a lot of work in magic, but I think most recently he's in the Illusionist show. I found out this story from Raymond Crow quite recently because we were talking. He noticed that I was sick in China. He said Jeff Hopkins carries this giant piece of luggage in it, and the luggage has all his, the case has all his magic props and all of that stuff. But then he has a section of the case that is for him personally when he's on the road, and this case has, instant food like instant noodles, instant soup in case he wants a snack, and little snack items. It has medicine and all sorts of herbs and teas in case he's traveling somewhere. If he even feels the slightest whiff of his immune system going down, he will correct it because you don't want to be sick while performing, while on tour. It's better to take care of yourself early than to take care of yourself too late. I've learned this a hard way. I've been sick so many times on the road, and it's been brutal. Nowadays, I'm so careful. If I feel even the littlest thing, boom, I go straight to the pharmacy. I'm like, what do you got? I'm drinking teas. I'm taking all this, different stuff to prevent it, and just boom, get my immune system back up so I can do what I need to do properly. Because if you can't function properly, if you feel bad and you have to work, it's no fun. It just brings the level down, and you won't be able to enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, it sucks. So just I mean, I don't want to talk too much about it, but if you want to hear more about it, listen to the podcast. But there have been times where I've been traveling, and it's like I'm in a beautiful location and I can't do anything. I'm literally in my bed. I can't move. I'm like dying. So you don't want that. Believe me, you really don't want that. So take care of yourself on the road. I want to talk about getting bookings internationally. So I think getting bookings is a science in itself. Wherever you go, there's obviously a ton of different markets in the world. There's everything from the birthday kid, the kid's birthday party side of it, where you're getting bookings in your local town for birthdays and different parties and events. And that moves into corporate events, and that moves into uh, you know shows at school, shows for festivals, shows at many, many different types of arenas. When you're working abroad, it's the same. The same rules that apply at home apply abroad. The work generally doesn't find you. It's usually you who have to go get the work. You have to advertise yourself. You need to be progressive, make contacts, follow leads, talk to people, make connections. That's what this business of being a magician is about. uh, I mean, you can be on TV. I've been on TV. People ask me, "Oh, oh, you've been on Penn and Teller. What did that do for you?" Penn and Teller has brought me directly zero work. Indirectly, it's brought me a lot of work because it's a great credential. But directly, nobody's seen me on Penn and Teller and said that, hey, we want you to come and perform for us. I mean, it might have happened a few times, but not enough times that it I can I can credit it for anything really. I mean, it's a great show, but that's not how you get work in this business. You get work by being proactive. So the different avenues that you're going to get work being a magician abroad are going to vary. I'm just going to go through them right now. So there is the magic conventions. There's magic conventions literally all over the world. Name a country, point to a country, a place on the map. There's most likely a magic convention there at some time of the year. Do research on what those magic conventions are. Many times they're booking people internationally at different levels. Obviously, conventions have a headliner. Usually, depending on the convention, there's conventions that are really small. The smallest convention I've ever been to was maybe 200 people, and then conventions quickly go up to thousands of people. But depending on the size of the convention, they have a few performers. If it's a big convention, they'll probably have a headliner or a few headliners. These are magicians who have a more prestigious name in magic. So it might be, Juan Tamariz or David Williamson or I don't know, just name somebody good. And they probably have worked at a convention as a headliner. We know who these guys are. But not everybody is a top name in magic. So most conventions have many names in magic. And if you are connected with these people running conventions and they are familiar with your work, it's possible that you work at magic conventions abroad. I want to give you general advice for working magic conventions abroad. Usually, they don't pay well. Uh, depending on the magic convention, really depending on the magic convention, you'll get, I mean, on the lower end, you'll get something like $500 plus transportation, hotel, all that stuff. That's like the low end of convention. To the higher end of convention, where you're getting thousands of dollars for your appearance, for your performance. But generally, conventions don't have huge budgets. They're not going to pay you as well as if you were doing a professional show. In most cases, that's something to be aware of. Whenever I worked conventions, when I started to work conventions, I didn't know what I was doing, so it was just like the Wild West. I was making mistakes left and right. As I got older, and you sort of have to make those mistakes. A lot of it is just how to make the convention more profitable. If you are doing convention, you want to do as many events as possible, events that will show you in a good light. So now when I do conventions, I always try to do my lecture. I want to do my workshop. I want to do close-up magic and the close-up gala. If they have a close-up gala, you want to work in the big gala, the big stage gala, to do a few minutes there in the big show. And if I can, I want to do my own show at the convention, my own show, which is just me doing my own show. If I now not every convention lets you do all this stuff. Sometimes they only want you for a few things, so it's like okay, whatever. Um, then you bring stuff to sell. If you, depending on what country you're going to, some countries you will have to get your lecture notes and your lecture notes translated. Some countries you don't. Just be aware of where you're going, and if the people speak English or speak your language. If they don't, they're less likely to buy your stuff. So just something to keep in mind. Um, get your stuff translated. Don't carry too much to sell. Carry, I used to go to conventions with enough stuff to buy for everybody, and I would come home with my suitcases full. The truth is, when you go to a convention, there are a percentage of people who will buy things, but if there's 400 people going to a magic convention, don't print 400 sets of lecture notes because you will come home with a lot of lecture notes. I would say it's different. It's different everywhere you go, but conventions are different everywhere you go. Lectures, you pretty much are guaranteed to sell maybe, depending on where you're lecturing, 60 to 80% of the audience your lecture notes or something, because people want to go out, support the lecturer. So you're almost guaranteed to sell something to every person if your things are not too expensive. So keep that in mind. What else do I want to say about conventions? But yeah, if you're working conventions, my best advice, although this is, we've sort of gone off on a tangent, spend time with the people at the convention, make it the best convention possible. You want every single person at the convention to have a memory of spending time with you, whether that's, hanging out with you between sessions and working on a routine, or maybe it's after hours, after the convention, all the events are done and everybody's hanging out in the lobby and at the bar and you're doing magic. You just want to get to know as many people as possible and make those connections with the local magicians. You just want to you're hired to make the event successful, and you don't only make the event successful by the quality of your lecture and your workshop and your show. People actually want to spend time with you and they want to get to know you as a person. So part of the convention is you hanging out with people. So if you ever do get the opportunity to work conventions, is just something to keep in mind, that people are really there to spend time with you. Okay, so that pretty much covers conventions. Usually, I mean, I'll just give you general advice. Depending on who you're working for, it's totally appropriate to ask for a down payment. Um, sometimes I'll get contacted and I don't know who I'm getting contacted by. And they're like, oh, we want you to come here and do this. And it's like, you don't know them. You don't know what their situation is. You don't know if it's real. Is this a real job? Am I going to actually get paid? So if it's somebody that you don't know and you don't trust, that relationship is not established, you're going to want to write a contract and get 50% of the money up front. You're also going to want them to book all your travel, just so that you're not paying for anything. It depends on if you have a tour set up and you have to, change some flights, obviously work with them. But if you don't know them, I do my best to get them to incur all those costs and put it all on them, just because I also don't know who I'm dealing with, and I don't have thousands of dollars to spend traveling the world for, unless it's a real job. You know what I mean? So get that sorted out. If you don't know who you're dealing with, get paid 50% before you leave home. Uh, that can be arranged online, money transfer, whatever. Uh, Whoever you're working with, always have a contract. Um, if it's a close friend and they're just asking you a favor, then whatever. But you, even then, I would say it's a good idea to have a contract, just because when you do have a contract and somebody is reading a document, it just lays out what you're doing and what they're doing. And so there's no miscommunication along the lines. Realistically, you're not going to do anything with that contract. They're not going to do anything with that contract. It's just a piece of paper that's there, but it's just a method to communicate with your client and lay out all the expectations so that you know exactly what you're doing. When I was in China. I don't want to name the performer, but the the day before the show, we had to go to the arena and do tech rehearsals. And so the plan was to do a run through of the show with tech, just so that they can do all the cue for the tech and all that stuff, and then do a run through of the show. And that was supposed to take, I don't know, 3-4 hours. And we get there and like in the morning, and we start doing tech, and the tech lasts. We don't even finish, but the tech lasts from the morning until 2 a.m. We're all exhausted. Nobody wants to be there at that point. We haven't even run through the show. So they let us go back to the hotel, and they're like, we're going to do whatever we need to do. I'm not too sure what the problems were behind the scene, but one of the performers was very upset to be there all day. We were in an empty arena. There's nowhere to eat. We have water bottles and there's like little snacks and stuff, but there's no food. There's no reason to be there, and there's literally nothing to do for hours where you're just sort of standing around. So one of the performers, the managers, complained to the management saying this is unacceptable. You can't, this is not in the contract for them to come and work for 12 hours or whatever it was, 14 hours straight. They don't need to be there. And yeah, so there's always situations like that. So just make sure wherever you're working knows what you need. Another thing, whenever I'm traveling abroad, I tried to put it in my contract. I just let them know. Usually it doesn't need to be in the contract. I mean, it depends. It can be in the contract. But one of the things I ask for when I'm traveling is I ask for like everything to be taken care of, all the expenses, because there have been times where I've gotten to a country and I've, to get to the actual convention, I've had to take a $200 train or a $200 taxi ride from the airport to where I'm going, and I've had to pay that expense out of my pocket, that $200, which is a very big expense. And so you want the organizers, whoever's organizing your convention or your show abroad, to take care of that expense. You want to be picked up from the airport. You want to be taken to the hotel. You want to be taken everywhere you need to go. And you don't want to have to pay for that stuff. So if you don't ask for it, in some cases, they won't take care of you. So you just need to make sure that you're taken care of wherever you're going, especially if you're in a foreign country. Like imagine if I land in China and I don't speak a word of Chinese and I need to get to my hotel and then get to this warehouse and I have, I don't have any money on me. I don't speak a word of Chinese. It can become a problem. I mean, it's not too complicated to get around. You can sort of translate and get a taxi and figure it out. But depending on where you're going, you don't necessarily want to have to deal with certain things. So I'm saying this because I don't want to have to deal with certain things. Maybe you're fine with just going to a foreign country and just making your way, but you know, if you have props, if you have heavy bags, and you don't want to deal with it, just organize it with whoever you're organizing it with. Make sure that expectation is clear. Um, Another thing that I ask for when I'm performing abroad is I ask for all my meals to be taken care of. So, and that's just a thing for me. I don't want to, because sometimes I'm going on tour, I'm going to 3, 4 different countries. I don't want to have that much money with me in different currencies and have to worry about if I have the right money, if I have to go somewhere to eat, and it just becomes another expense and something that I have to pay out of pocket. So I ask for them to take care of that. I ask for my meals to be covered, and whether that's they'll say just eat. Depending on where you are, sometimes your hotel will be in the middle of nowhere, and you'll be ordering room service or you'll be delivering food. There have been times where my hotel where I'm working is literally in the middle of nowhere, and there's nowhere to eat. The closest place to eat. I remember I was in Germany doing a TV show, and we had finished the TV show, got back to the hotel. I was starving. I hadn't eaten all day, and I uh, I was like, let's go to McDonald's. And they're like, okay, the closest to McDonald's is a 45-minute cab ride. And I was so hungry, I just said, screw it, let's go. And so I hopped in a cab. I paid for that cab ride, 45 minutes to go to the McDonald's. I ordered a McDonald's, and then I brought the McDonald's back to the hotel, another 45 minutes. And I paid for that, which was probably the most expensive McDonald's meal that I ever ate in my life. But I had no other option. I was starving. I was working all day, and I had to work the next day. So just ask for what you need before it comes to it. It might sound silly, like, oh, I need my food to be taken care of, but it's something you don't want to have to worry about when it comes to it. And all the time, I don't like to eat before shows generally. I like to sort of just be light on my feet, and like I don't want to have to eat. I don't want to have eaten right before I perform. So oftentimes I finish shows at night. A lot of restaurants are closed by the time you change and you get out of there and you do all the stuff you do after a show. Um, there's nothing, sometimes nowhere to go. Everything is closed. So sometimes you can organize it with the organizers. You tell them, this is what I want to eat. I want it to be hot at this time so that when I get off stage and I get back to my dressing room, I can have 10 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it is, to eat that meal, and so that you at least eat that night uh, when you want to eat. And that's something you need to arrange in advance, because otherwise it's not going to happen, and you're going to be very hungry after the show. And depending on where you are, there might be a place to eat, there might not. And you might want to go out, even if there are places to eat after the show. You might be too tired after the show. If you're on a tour and you have to go somewhere the next morning and you have to be up at 5 or 6 a.m. to hop on a plane or a bus, get to the airport, you might not want to go out that night to eat dinner. Maybe you just want to do the show, take it easy and catch a few hours of sleep. So just make sure wherever you are that you're taken care of and that you ask for what you need. These are all things that I've learned the hard way. Um, working abroad. What else do I want to say? Working abroad, covered contracts. Oh yeah, lecture tours. Another source of income is lecture tours. Have things to sell. People want to buy your stuff when you're doing lectures, so have a set of notes. If you have a DVD or some sort of video that you can make of your material, even if it's of the lecture, a great thing to do is, people come to see the lecture, but they forget like everything in the lecture. So if you have your lecture on DVD that you sell to people, that is a great thing to have. People will buy that after the lectures. if it's a reasonable price, people will buy that. Another thing people love to buy is uh, things that use some sort of gimmick or prop that they need to buy from you. If you can, if it's a good trick and they need a little special coin or special card or set of cards to do it, that is those are things that sell. These are just things to keep in mind. Playing cards always sell. Uh, yeah. What else is there? Lecture tours. Um, Now, to talk about, if when you are doing lecture tours, always try to see if you can set up a workshop uh, as well, uh, because you'll always get a few people to sign up for the workshops, and it's just like a nice extra bit of money in your pocket, and it's a bit of time for you to actually teach the stuff that you're really interested in, because usually the people who come to the workshops, not all the time, but usually they're more serious about magic. They are better at magic. They're just more skillful. They spend more time on magic. So I personally love to do workshops more than lectures. I'm actually I don't lecture much these days. I do sometimes. I'm changing my lecture tremendously. My lecture is soon going to be mostly self-working items, and my workshop is going to be things with sleight of hand. So that's a shift that I'm making very soon in terms of what I'm teaching, because people want easy stuff that they can do when they go to a lecture. A lecture, for the most part, is not really what we want lectures to be, unfortunately. So you have to give people what they want. You have to play to your audience, and your audience may not be expert card manipulators or experts at sleight of hand or experts at different areas of magic. They might just want to learn a few easy things that they can do. So that's always smart to keep in mind when you're doing lectures, is to understand who you're teaching and what level they're at. um, Okay, to move into different arenas, I will talk a little bit about festivals. I've worked at, and then I'll talk about shows generally. I've worked at a few festivals abroad. Sometimes these are magic festivals, and what I mean by magic festival or a festival in general is it is a festival of shows and not lectures. It's not a typical magic convention, and it's not marketed towards magicians. Festivals are marketed towards the public. So the people coming, you might get some magicians coming, a small number, but most of the people coming to see those shows at a festival are members of the public. So they want to see magic performed. There's festivals all over the world, uh, many, many types of festivals. Sometimes they have special themes that you might be able to fit into whatever it is that you do. Other times they're just general performance festivals, and if you have your show on video, which is a great thing to have your show recorded on video. That's sort of my next project in a bit. Get my show on video in a really nice format, video format, so that I can pitch it to one of these festivals, so that it really captures what I do. But if you do have your show on video, you can submit it to festivals, uh, and there's a lot of fringe festivals. There's tons of different festivals around the world. And if you go on their websites, you look at them online, just look at performing arts festivals or fringe festivals, just Google those terms, and you will get websites with lists of festivals all over the world. And you can apply to go to perform at some of these festivals. Depending on where you're performing, the setup will be different. The fringe festivals are the Fringe festivals. You you and the festival sell tickets, and you guys split the tickets with you split the tickets with the festival, and depending on what festival is a different percentage, you might get 30%, you might get 40%, 50%, depending on where you're doing it and what they're providing. If they're providing a theater, if they're providing a hotel, if they're providing different stuff, you'll get a different amount of the percentages. So it's up to you to apply to these and then judge for yourself. How much money do I think I can make here? Is it a good decision to set up this show? Can I set up a lecture tour in the area? Can I set up different shows in the area? Like, how can I promote it? Will I go on TV when I get there? Will I, these are all things that you need to think about. Um, some festivals are better organized than others. Some of the festivals that I go to are really well organized, and some to separate from the Fringe festivals. Some of the festivals will just hire you. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about ticket sales. You don't have to worry about any of that. They will give you you'll submit, you'll apply to go to the festival, and they'll like your stuff or they won't like your stuff, whatever is the case. But they will come back to you if they like you, and they'll say, "We want you to come. What do you need?" And then you start negotiating prices, the price of how much you're being paid to go there, uh, and they'll do the hotel and flights and all that stuff. And you won't have to worry about anything. And most of the time, if it's a really well organized festival, they have amazing connections with the with the media, so they'll get you on TV, doing interviews, doing little performance on news shows, on different stuff to help promote the festival and to help promote your show and to fill up your theater. Honestly, whenever I work festivals, they're the best. They're like, oh, it's just amazing to work at festivals because you're usually there for a few days and they take care of everything and they set up the publicity for you. You don't have to worry about tickets, and hundreds and even thousands of people show up to go see your shows, and it seems like you don't have to do the work. They're doing a lot of the work for you, and you get well paid, which is incredible. So some of these festivals, getting well paid is, I mean, getting well paid is always fun, but yeah. So there's that. Um, if you want to do your own show, you can wherever you are going. Obviously, you want to set it up with somebody local, somebody who knows the city or the country where you are, somebody who has media connections, somebody who can make things happen. I would not go to a country and just do a show by myself, produce it by myself. I wouldn't do it just because it's too much risk, financial risk. It's too much work. I don't have the media connections. You want to find producers in every single country that you can go to, people who are involved in theaters, people who make things happen and are connected with the media wherever you are going, people who just generally work in the performing arts, who work in theater, who, when you do work with them, they have a handle on promoting your show with you and setting up all the stuff that you need set up, because it is not, it's, unless you're, I mean, it's very hard, I think, as a magician to just show up in a country with no connections and do a show. You usually have a press agent, you have somebody who's working, and, a leaf just assaulted me. But you usually do have somebody that you're working with who sets up the back end of all this stuff. You don't want to have to be doing it all by yourself. It's honestly, it's too much. Um, I've sort of gone off on a tangent on so many things, but I'm just trying to think of what I can impart to you on touring. Uh, I've generally found that you will never be as popular in your own country or your own town as you will be abroad. I don't know why that is, but I've heard it from everybody in show business, everybody who I've worked with. Many places, your hometown usually only is proud of you after you've gone out into the world and made a success of yourself. So, as much fun as it is working at home and trying to build a reputation at home, and it's very possible to build a very good reputation at home, uh, people don't respect it as much as if you're traveling abroad and you're working in what you do. So, I would, I think the formula for me personally would be to set your eye on a country or a place that is a foreign country. It doesn't matter where that is, but a place that's not your country right now, and aim to become successful in that country, make connections in that country. That's the best thing I think for magicians. And then go home between shows, relax, work on your new material, your new stuff, and also I mean, work at home, but um, I think working abroad is just so fun. I've been to so many countries that I never thought I would be going to. When I was even up until I think I mean. I was a late bloomer. It took me a while to get on the road, and people were telling me, Matty, you can perform on the road, you can do this, and I didn't believe them. These were some of my friends. Were like, I was jealous of them. Whenever they would come to Toronto, I'd be like, wow. I won't tell you the magician, but once one of my magician friends was visiting from the UK, and I just remember talking to him, and he's like, oh yeah, after this, I'm going here and I'm going there. And like, I just looked at him and like, wow, that must be nice. Like, you just, wow. And I just didn't think that life was for me. And he sort of just sat me down and he told me, you can do it too. You will be doing it. I didn't believe him, but it became true. And now I'm traveling all over the world doing shows. It's a lot of fun. Uh, it it can pay very well. You need to be sharp as a business person in order to make money. It's very possible to travel the world and make no money. There's magicians who travel the world doing shows, doing lecture tours, and they're not making money. You really, really need to be a smart businessman. And if you aren't good at business, then find a business partner. Find somebody who can handle you, because you deserve to, make money when you're traveling out there and you are uh, performing, being a magician on the road. Let me see, other advice for performing magic on the road. Everywhere you go, try to get a few days off. Try to get at least 1 or 2 free days off wherever you go, where you're not working, or ask them to come in early and just enjoy wherever it is you're going. Uh, as soon as you start performing magic abroad, at least I did, I fell into the habit of just boom, 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 working, working, working. I was like, yeah, I've been there, but I didn't see anything. I literally went from the airport to the hotel, to the venue, to the hotel, then straight to the airport. I didn't see where I was. I didn't get to experience it. I didn't get to see, like, I didn't, it's like I never even visited. Um, and even right now, there's so many places on the map where I've been, and people ask me, oh, how was this place? And I'll be like, I don't know. I don't know if you guys realize what I was doing. I was in my hotel, and then I was working. I didn't actually get to see anything. I didn't go downtown. I didn't get to go to any restaurants. I didn't get to see anything, do anything. I was working. So do enjoy it while you can, if you can. And it's an amazing thing. If you want more practical tips, I mean, this sort of just covers a lot of areas very briefly. Uh, Ask people who do it. Ask people who are traveling around the world, and don't be afraid to ask them questions. Be like, just ask them. Okay, you go on this lecture tour and you go to these countries. How much money are you making? How much money are you coming home with? Who who's organizing it? How are they organizing it? And people will tell you how this stuff works. You sort of just have to ask and learn, because there's no like it's not really in books or there's no guides on it. You sort of have to learn how to do this um, all by yourself. It's funny, one of the things that I want to do this winter, I haven't told anyone, it's sort of a secret project. And I'm not embarrassed about it, but it's definitely something new for me. I actually do. I am working on a kid show, like a proper kid show, and I have a 1 hour kid show that I'm working on, and I would love to perform it at children's birthday parties and schools and different places. And this is a real thing that I'm working on. And the reason why, I mean, it's a long story of how I wanted to do this, but long story short, I started doing more and more motivational speeches at schools for children. And it just got into my mind, like, I didn't want to just do my regular magic for them. I wanted to adapt what I was doing to make it more fun for the kids. That doesn't mean I want to do like, hippity hop rabbits or things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that trick, but it's just not my style. But so this upcoming winter, I am redesigning everything. My website. I'm still doing my corporate shows, my real shows from my real clients, but I really want to get some kid shows under my belt, local kid shows that they're not going to pay me much. They're not going to whatever, but I don't care. For me, this is what I want to do. I want to develop a world class magic kid show. I don't think there's a few very good kids magicians like Mario the Magician, um, who does a fantastic show for children. But there's not many great kid shows out there. So it's something I want to develop. So it's just something extra that I have. Like, oh yeah, oh, your kid's having a party? Can I do magic at it? Of course I can do magic. What do you think I am? I'm a magician. Of course I'll come to your child's birthday party. Which is something I would have never done before. I was just too uptight. I'm like, oh, I'm a professional magician. I only do close-up magic for adults. And my mind has opened up. So I'm going to be doing kid shows, and I will let you guys know how that is. But in terms of working abroad, I don't know if I have anything else to add right now. I'm sure as soon as I end this, there will be like 20 things that pop in my mind. I just wanted to cover whatever came to my mind and give that to you. But as always, we have room for comments. So please make a comment after this video is done, and let me know for you guys on Patreon what you guys want to know about working abroad. And I will promise you this: whatever question you ask, I will answer. If I don't personally know the answer, it doesn't matter how complex the question is, I will find you the answer, because even if I don't know, I know somebody who knows. So I will ask people who know and find the answer for you. So to me, that's an incredible resource. Please ask the questions, and yeah, just ask. Just ask. And because there's really nothing like traveling the world doing magic. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. But please ask. I hope you guys enjoyed this. As I said, this video was supposed to come last month. I don't know what to say. I'm behind. I'm very much looking forward to wrapping up the book club for last month, which was The Expert at the Card Table. soon. I just want to brush up on the tricks very quickly over the next few days, just so I can talk about them with the tricks being fresh in my mind. I know and perform some of the tricks from that book, but they're not all fresh in my mind. So just going to refresh myself. And my goal is to do another October's book club before the end of October, and uh, also do the October Studies of Magic, which I haven't decided the topic, but it will be it will be I don't know. I'll come up with something. I have a list of things, but if you have any suggestions, put it down and we will talk about it. Uh, I guess in the next week or so. So please leave your suggestions for me. And again, I'm sorry about the delay. It's just I wanted to do it before I left, and I had to prepare for China, and I was stressed out about the show. It was the biggest show I ever did, 10,000 people in the audience, and I had concerns about some areas of the whole show. Uh, but now I'm back home. I'm focused. I'm doing the magic and the gigs that I'm used to, the regular gigs that are less than 10,000 people. So I'm back as myself in my real mindset. So I am here. So, yeah, just wanted to say that. Don't really have anything else to say. Uh, don't really have anything else to say, but I enjoy spending time with you guys. So hope you guys enjoy this. Uh, and I will see you in the next few days. I will let you, and then my goal is to obviously schedule these live streams better so that we can all be on the same schedule. I'm just really bad at schedules for some reason. I'm pretty good sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty good, but there have been times where I've been off. So I do want to fix that for you guys. And yeah. Anyways, have a good day, good week, whatever it is that you're doing, wherever you are in the world. I will see you soon. Peace.